Okay, got this. All righty. Good evening, everyone. Welcome once again to Wake the Nation. It's that time again. It's that time of the month. And this evening's Wake the Nation, we're dealing with mental health wellness and mental and emotional health wellness. We're also like slash suicide prevention. So yeah, the reason being it is mental wellness month awareness, right? I believe that's what it is in the month of May. And as I stated before on many of my programs, that in 2020, 500 children ages 9 through 13 years old actually committed suicide, and 6,000 14 through 24-year-olds committed suicide. And so it is a problem. For 2021, the total count has not been completed according to research. So I do not have a number on that. However, I just want to say it's time for us to get up and be strong and take action. You know, there are mental issues that can lead to suicide. There are self-destructive behaviors that is a breeding ground for suicide. One such thing is cutting. We know if one isn't found, they can bleed out. Another is chronic depression, right? Because there are means. I don't have to say the means that people take when they're depressed, unfortunately. And also substance abuse can cause people to OD or to have alcohol poisoning. So it all depends. Also, worry and stress does diminish the quality and quantity of lives. So today I have with me Mr. Sonny Pierre from ARA, emotional and mental. Can you tell me again? Emotional? I'm sorry.
It it's fine. I know the name is rather lengthy. It's ARA, Emotional Wellness, Mental Hygiene.
Yes. Okay. And so I'll put that up as soon as he's going to speak. However, I just want to say before we get there that there are some warning signs that different organizations have put out. And some of the warning signs of mental illness, unfortunately, it cannot be diagnosed straightforward like the way diabetes or heart problems, can be diagnosed. However, there are some common signs that we can look for, or if we see them, that we should. And that's one of the reasons why Mr. Pierre is on here, because he does, they do grief counseling, marital counseling, and all aspects that deals with our mental, cognitive, that emotional issue. So feeling very sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks. So if you or a loved one have been very sad or withdrawn for more than 2 weeks, out of the ordinary. And Sony will go into that some more. Anyway, trying to harm or end one's life or making plans to do so. Severe, out of control, risk-taking behavior that causes harm to oneself or others, or that can cause harm. Sudden overwhelming fear for no reason, sometimes with a racing heart, physical discomfort or difficulty breathing. Significant weight loss or weight gain. Seeing, hearing, or believing things that aren't real. Excessive use of alcohol or drugs. And as I stated before, that can cause alcohol poisoning or can cause one to OD. Drastic changes in mood, behavior, personality, or sleeping habits. Extreme difficulty concentrating or staying still. And intense worries or fears that get in the way of daily activities. You see, having this drastic 360 change in routine or doing things as if it's the last time, or asking about deceased relatives, right, that matter to them. And we're going to address how one can get help if one's feeling this way, or if you see your loved ones going through this. You see, because it's stated that 50% of all lifetime mental illnesses begin at age 14. So we're looking at our teens, and by age 75% by age 24. And we know that it's been reported that a third of middle school students have been battling depression, and half of high school students have been battling depression. Listen, we've gone through a lot. We've been through upheavals. We've had COVID, which is still ongoing. And so there are a lot of factors, extenuating home factors, outside factors, that is causing this problem. But today, we're here to help you. So don't throw in the towel, or at least to point you to where you can really get help, right? The problems that you're facing are very real, right? But there's hope, because your life is worth more than you're experiencing right now. So don't give up. So with that being said, I am going to introduce Mr. Sonny Pierre. Unfortunately, our psychologist and co-host, Thais Love, is unable to be on today. Our co-host, there were extenuating circumstances. They're fine, but other things were happening. And so we do have Mr. Sonny with us. And Crystal, can you put up the information for me for Mr. Sonny? Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Sorry. And there it is, Mr. Oh, wait a minute. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Sorry. And there it is. Hold on a second. I don't know. Oh, wait. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Sorry. And there it is. Hold on a second. I don't know. Oh, wait. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Sorry. And there it is. Hold on a second. I don't know. Oh, wait. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Bear with us, please. Just a moment. Bear with us, please. Just a moment. Bear with us, please. Oh, wait. I think there were two. Sorry, I don't know what happened. There were two programs at the same time. Oh, well, it's been resolved. So, okay, if you can put it back up, and hopefully that won't happen again. So we have Mr. Sonny Pierre, who's the founder and CEO of ARA, Emotional Wellness and Mental Hygiene. And so, Mr. Sonny, it's your turn. Thanks, Crystal.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's definitely an honor and a privilege to be amongst you guys. I want to tell you thank you for the introduction, but also the information that you was able to share with us right before we started. The information that you shared was such a wealth of information. I don't even know where to begin with that. But with that being said, when it comes down to mental health, all the information that you shared is very relevant, very important. But when it comes down to African American communities, it almost seems as though those things are a norm.
Hmm.
The things that African American people are dealing with on a regular basis um, are literally textbook or clinical things that we deal on a regular basis, and those things play such a major role
Yes.
just on the demographics of our community. When it comes down to alcoholism, when it comes down to the liquor stores that are
Hmm.
on our blocks, there are probably more liquor stores now than churches. There the way that our areas or neighborhoods are set up, all these things are contributors to how Black people function on a normal day-to-day basis. And those things are so relevant. You did mention when it comes down to children's, and those facts are true when it comes down to the depression in young people. The interesting thing is, and this is where it could be very detrimental, is that when it comes down to child psychology, uh, um, depression in children can be often not seen because
Yeah.
children have ways of covering up their depression. A child could look giddy and yet
Hmm.
still going through depression. A child could be happy, but really inside they're really sad or they're really struggling with that. So that's the
Hmm.
important thing. That's what it's so important that we pay attention to these signs and symptoms. Um, One might ask, when it comes down to the name of our organization, because one of the philosophies that we have is if we can tackle the emotional aspects of an individual's life, then that can reduce them going into um, being diagnosed with a mental illness. So that's why we focus on emotional wellness as well as mental hygiene. Simply because at the end of the day, I believe, statistic has not proven that yet, but I believe that Black people or African American as well as Brown people we were born, or it's in our
Hmm.
DNA, with uh, anger issues. We are angry. We are angry for a lot of reasons. Um, and just our neighborhoods or our towns and communities are some oftentimes contribute to those disparities. Lack of employment, um, lack of possibilities of advancing in life, lack of opportunity uh, for for uh, for property. There are so many things that we have been deprived of, and that works on our emotions. People get up on a regular basis, and we get on the trains, we get on the buses, we walk the streets, we go to work, and we can be very emotional. When we talk about emotions, the five major types of emotions are anger, are sadness, um, are loneliness, fear. And if we can really get control over those emotions, then that would lessen the possibilities of really going into mental or being diagnosed with a mental illness. And this all, believe it or not, my company um, was
I'm
built.
sorry. Can you
Uh,
repeat
I'm sorry.
the Can you repeat the five emotions if you don't mind? Thank you.
So we have anger, we
Hmm.
have sadness,
Hmm.
we have um, happiness, we have a joy, and then we have disgust. I'm sorry, and I it's actually six. We have fear.
Right. Good. Okay. Thank you.
So those six, these are things that we deal with on a regular basis. You would be surprised if we pay attention. We pay attention to ourselves, just in the first couple of hours of when we wake up in the morning, especially for those that have children. How often, how quick we go from one emotion to the next. Oftentimes we can encounter those six emotions, and those six emotions within the first couple of hours of us getting up in the morning.
Wow.
Okay, so let's just paint a picture. We wake up, let's say we slept nice, so we wake up happy. We're getting up the kids in the morning. Okay, and one of the kids, if they're young, they happen to, wet the bed. We went from happy to discuss.
Hmm.
Okay, it's making us late for work, so we get angry. So now that we cleaned that up and we got all that, then at one point, if we didn't get something ready for work, that's fear, because we don't know if they're going to get rid of us. So we can go through all of these different emotions on a regular basis, and that's not detrimental. It's not in a place to be worried. It becomes a problem when we're waking up angry, staying angry from the time we get up, all throughout the day, on the train, of course, and or on the bus, or even in a car.
Exactly.
Okay, there are people that we're at the red light, and the driver next to us, we don't know what's on their mind. We don't know if that individual, it has a plan to do something. Road rage, that's from anger. So it's very important that we become very in tuned with our emotion. And when it comes down to counseling and therapy, one of the things that we advocate, which is the onset to seeing a change in our emotions or our mental illness, is self-expression. We want to begin to express ourselves. And we often don't see that in families where, if the spouse happens to be upset, we want to express that. Hey, honey, I'm upset right now. Verbally, you want to be expressive. I'm really not feeling my best right now. If you can begin to do those processes, what it does for you now is, one, you're mindful of it. Two, your surroundings is mindful of it. And that way they can help you get to the next level of feeling better. But as I was mentioning before, is my organization, my company, or the practice began a little while back, where we had District Attorney Charles Hines, who had begun to establish something that they call alternative sentencing. And these were individuals that were getting arrested. Rather than giving them prison time, they were sending them to different communities that had centers, and they were doing work within the community for the time, for a duration of time. So here, my organization had the Charles Hines office reached out to us and let us know, hey, if we would be interested. And yes, we did. We participated, and our program ran just about 5 years. Within that 5-year period, we were able to see a little over 500 individuals went through this program.
Oh,
but
wow.
However, including the nephew of Eric Garner. And so what triggered us to go into this area is when the district attorney's office asked if we did any anger management. And we said, no, we didn't provide that type of service. Believe it or not, that's one of the services that our community doesn't have much of at all.
Mhm.
So so then what I noticed was that we were going into, individuals were coming, but then we find an onset of recidivism that was happening. These individuals were coming, but then they were getting rearrested. And for me, I was somewhat of a perfectionist. I said, well, this is not an effective program. If individuals are coming and then getting rearrested, there's
Exactly.
something that we need to do. Yeah. So then individuals were getting anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of community service. So what we did was we split the hours. If they were doing 8 hours, we give them 4 hours of manual labor. And then the other 4 hours, we were either doing counseling sessions with them, or we were doing life planning with them. Because a
Mm,
lot of these individuals didn't have a life plan. Some didn't even have a resume. Some didn't even know how to look for a job. So we were getting these individuals, not only we were preparing them for life, but we were also getting them hired within the community, whether it was a McDonald's, whether it was a GameStop, whether it was a 7-Eleven, whether it was right here in Canarsie, Brooklyn. But again, we had a situation because there were a lot of individuals that needed to go through anger management. Make a
mm,
long story short, we uh, shut down the program. I went back to school, got my degree that would allow me to counsel. And here we are as we started to do these counseling sessions. But then we found that a lot of the individuals that were coming to us, and clinically we will see this, that oftentimes, especially within adults, adult males, depression could be mimicked around anger.
yeah.
Individuals can be depressed and they express their depression under frustration and anger. So, and then as you mentioned, this would go into an extensive or excessive drinking, and then we have an alcohol problem. So all of these components led to our organization, our practice rather, being able to touch all these points, whether we have a substance abuse counselor on staff, a psychiatrist that um, um, would be able to write out prescriptions, as you mentioned earlier, about um, excess talking, and that there'd be no one there or seeing things. These are signs of schizophrenia or
Right.
paranoia. Um, and then we have a psychologist on board, and then we have therapists that are in the community and look like us, that are able to deal with us. So this is pretty much, in a nutshell, where we have begun and doing the work that we're doing. This July is going to make our company 5 years in existence, and we are definitely excited to be able to partner up with individuals as yourself and other community partners, so that we can see a change within our community.
Yes. And I want to thank you.
I know I said a lot.
No, no, and we need to hear the information. I thank you for joining us out there on Tuesday, last Tuesday, within the community, where I don't know if you were aware, but it was uh I didn't know this before, but did you notice that there were two liquor stores next to each other? And I didn't realize
I,
that.
I actually didn't even pick that up.
Yeah, the one at the end,
I didn't even
one
pick
at
that
the
up.
end and the one next to it. And they were heavily, you wouldn't recognize it
Right.
because the uh the last one was so heavily secured, so I think that's why. But
Mhm.
because I went there the day before to give out the flyers, and that's when I said, wait, wow. And then
Mm.
after the cleanup, because I didn't notice it prior to the cleanup, So what we're talking about is that we did a community outreach, because in certain parts of our district, we do have gun violence more than certain other sections of our community. And so we are working with the residents of the community, and we've seen some changes in some parts that we've done this. We do the food outreach, we give out information. And so we're at this particular instance because there were 2 shootings this year alone, just in 4 months. And so what I noticed after we cleaned up, when we gave out food, was there were a whole lot of small liquor bottles. So I don't know, like after you guys left, like after some of the vehicles moved, when I looked down, it like had so many liquor bottles. And then when it didn't have it, there were the small ones like this. And if bottles were absent, there were the covers. There were covers strewn all around. And so that's one of the things that in our communities, unfortunately, we do have a lot of liquor stores and things that can, may exacerbate the if one's dealing with mental illness or just frustrations on a whole. Matter of fact, just before you got there, there was a little bit of frustration in the area, but thank God everything quelched down and went really well. And at the crux of the matter, something that I've found, I've spoken to a lot of folks that some folks wouldn't give a second, you know what I mean, within our community.
Understood. Yeah.
And we're all humans, and you've said something, the emotions that we feel, they go, our partners, our people, our brothers, and our cousins, we may not be directly related, but we're people of color, and so we're related, right? And they just want to feel safe and be happy. Seriously.
Absolutely.
And many, even those who've gone to jail before, they have families. They're concerned about their parents. They're concerned if, whether it's a mom or a dad or, an older parent, they're concerned about their children. And so, I don't think anybody was born, being called names. Someone gave birth. And because things happen. And another thing that I found out, I spoke to quite a few people, and I found out things that happened in their homes that made them feel unsafe, made them turn to the streets. And the streets didn't make them feel any safer. So basically, it's just a fight for your life kind of a situation. But for the youth that are, because they're penned up and because they've been locked at home, working with our police department, I've found out that a lot of young people, kids, were in homes with bodies anywhere from 24 up to 72 hours during COVID. That has that hasn't been addressed, I don't think, too much in our communities. But that leads to, I have spoken with kids, I've spoken with parents, children are afraid. There's fear. And then the gun violence makes them feel afraid. And then the shootings on the trains make them feel afraid. There's a lot of fear. So how do you, and a lot of times I've discovered, I used to teach in the public school system, and I discovered a lot of times kids would mask fear with anger. I've found also that adults do likewise, mask fear with anger. So how is there a solution that you have?
Well, one of the things when it comes down to young people that as I've sat down and I've evaluated and seen the issues that young people have to deal with, particularly young people within our community. Of course, as I highlighted before, we have to look at the disparity. We have to look at the differences when it comes down to mental health as a whole, and mental health with in the African American community. Um, our white counterparts, or our Caucasian counterparts, when there is a situation within the home, when it comes down to mental health, they can easily put their kids on a plane and go on a vacation, and even have the capabilities of sending the therapist with them. Or they can get up and go play golf. They can go out and do things so that they can redirect that negative energy. However, just as you mentioned, throughout COVID, individuals had to, their rooms had to become morgues for 24 to 72 hours until someone came and picked that body up. And a lot of times those things are not highlighted. That is that that is, of course, not only emotionally traumatizing, but mentally traumatizing too.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, oftentimes individuals don't want to be in that space anymore. Those things are not being highlighted. Um, way before COVID
Go ahead.
happened, many years ago, we, meaning my wife and I, used to mentor two kids through an organization called Angel Tree. And Angel Tree was an organization that
We
provided
participated in that.
mentors
Yes.
for parents, yeah, that were incarcerated. We were able
Incarcerated.
to uh, yeah, we were able to mentor two brother and sister who both their mother and father were incarcerated,
Oh, wow.
and they lived right here in Bedford Stuyvesant. And keep in mind, I don't know how well you're familiar with Bedford Stuyvesant, or where that area was, but I remember we were able to take these two individuals to a few places right here in Brooklyn. And we would ask them, hey, and these were kids at the age of 12 and 12, 13-year olds. And we asked them, have you ever been to TGI Fridays, which is right here on downtown Brooklyn, on DeKalb and Flatbush? And they said, no, they've never been there. Do you know where Junior's Cheesecake is? No, we don't know where that is. Have you ever been to Coney Island? No, we've never been to Coney Island. Have you ever been to the Brooklyn Museum? No, we've never been there. So watch this. The furthest landmark that I mentioned from the Bed-Stuy area was Coney Island. Furthest. So those landmarks, the Brooklyn Museum, the TGI Fridays, Junior's Cheesecake, are minutes away from, because they lived on Gates, were minutes away. So our kids, when they see somebody get murdered outside their window, when they see somebody get murdered outside their school, when they see, fights or robberies or things, this can be absolutely traumatizing, but it's become their norm. We don't have to go to Vietnam to experience the trauma and to experience the pain and experience the frustration of what life is. I heard a young person say not too long ago, they said, once I have enough money, I'd love to go to California. Really? California? LA? We save money to go to Dubai. We save money to go to, places like Africa, and these kids want to go as far as California. That's a problem. And as much as we may say to ourselves, um, what does that have to do with mental health? It has everything to do with mental health, because again, there's the depravity. Young people are looking forward to the summer, which is the first summer after they've gone through this long school year of just
Yeah.
being acclimated back into the whole school system. But they're not going anywhere but their front door. They're not going anywhere realistically. So I say all of that to say what ARA Emotional Wellness has looked into doing beginning the second week of July. We are launching Wellness Camp. And Wellness Camp is pretty much a getaway for these for young kids that are struggling with some type of emotional or mental challenge, whether it be uh, um, frustration, whether it be depression, whether it be temper tantrums. We have a lot of kids punching walls, and whether it be dealing with their sexuality, whether it be dealing with bullying, and we'll take them away for that weekend to along with three therapists, three counselors. Of course, when they get to this campsite out here in Bethel, Pennsylvania, they are going to, of course, have different sports activities. Black folks don't get a chance to to do canoeing, so they'll have opportunity to do canoeing. They'll have opportunity to climb a mountain. They'll have opportunity to play games and swimming and basketball, and to really kind of get away from the tension or the tensions of their neighborhoods,
Yes.
and having them away. Then that we can home in on some of the things that are bothering or troubling them. Now, this is a project. I think all the projects that we're looking to do, I think they're effective because they're bigger than my thought or my mind could even conjure. So while they're away with a therapist for the weekend, we're going to have a social worker out here go and see that home. I think this is the preliminary, or the opposite of having ACS come to your home. So
Okay.
when so when this social worker comes to your home, what we're going to be doing is preparing an action plan, a case plan, so that when that child returns, though they're coming back to the same neighborhood, their home might not be in the same atmosphere.
Very good. Guys, I'm so glad. I hope you hear that. And as we gave the information before, it was on the screen, 347-437-1059. You can reach ARA, Emotional Wellness and Mental Hygiene, Mr. Sonny Pierre, and he has a staff. You heard who's on staff. And I can say that that is vitally important. I used to take my children to dude ranches. Thank you. We've gone to dude ranches. We've gone places, because you have to, and even in and around the city, museums, restaurants. I remember once when my little one, one of my little ones, was young, and he asked me, he said, "Mommy, are we going to the restaurant?" And I said, "Yes, we are." And another little toddler heard, and said, oh, to his mother, oh, Mommy, they're going to McDonald's. And my son turned to and they're both toddlers. He turned and said, "No, that's fast food. We're going to a restaurant." And like in his limited and the mother looked at me, but I tell you this, when I was at Brooklyn College, and they send you out to do student teaching, the school that I went to was close to Brookdale Hospital. And I asked the students, because, as a teacher, I always tell students the Brooklyn Library, the one at Grand Army Plaza. I tell them about, you have the old homesteads right here in New York. There's one on
Mm-hmm.
Ralph Avenue. There's one at Prospect Park. In Queens, you have a number of them, and Staten Island, and various museums and science centers in the city. You have radio and television and so many activities for our youths, our children, starting from children all the way up. And you have, for those who love trains, you have MTA downtown Brooklyn. Oh, there are lots. I can't even remember. I'm just going by what I used to
Mm-hmm.
take my children to. And I remembered saying to these students, I said, well, you can go to King's Plaza, and and you have the mall over there at the end of Emmons Avenue, where it's so refreshing in the summer, because the cool
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
you go to those
Sheepshead Bay,
restaurants
yeah.
in Sheepshead Bay. And I was just met, and they were like, where? Like, no. Oh, what state is that? And I'm like, no, that's Brooklyn. Brooklyn. They've never been to Kings. And then I realized that they never stepped outside of this radius that, and
Mm-hmm.
encapsulated just their whole lives. And I have, as a teacher, I even used to take some of the students with my family, with my kids. When I'm going, I'd get their parents' permission, of course. And, at different times, I'll just for them to experience. And, I have to tell you, now I've seen some of my students that have, one's in the Air Force, he lives in Germany, one became a
Wow.
nurse. They're different, and the world's out there to be enjoyed. And
Yes.
the thing that I have found, uh, even if one is suicidal, one has to change your environment. And I find nature helps a lot. It's a calm, it's a
Mm-hmm.
peace. If you don't like bugs, I understand, you can go to the beach. And like you said, Coney Island is right there. That's just a place. Yes, it can be noisy, but if you walk all the way to the other end of the boardwalk, you have silence, peace. And there's the Manhattan Beach, which is in Brooklyn, right there behind, was it Bedford Avenue, go all the way down. There are places,
Mm-hmm.
there are lots of the Botanic Gardens right here in Brooklyn. Of course, the New York Botanic Gardens is like the best, the one in the Bronx, right? We also had, we have a zoo
Mm-hmm.
right here in Brooklyn, right? And I find that I love what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, because when you go away from your home, even for a weekend, no matter how stressed your week was, when you return, it's just different. Granted, if you live in a toxic environment and that toxicity does not change, then it will kind of revert back to that. However, when you step out of that environment, you go away to a dude ranch, or you go away to an empowerment, it could be anything. Just going to the city, go to the what's the park in Manhattan again? I can't even.
Central Park, yeah.
Central Park, right? Oh my goodness, we always used to go there as well. They had so many activities. You can play miniature golf and boat ride. There were so many things. I don't know about now, but I can only think that things have improved, right? But as I said, right here in Brooklyn and in the outer boroughs, right there in Queens, the Lewis Latimer
Mm-hmm.
museum is there. His house, it's his house, right? We
Right.
have so many gems right in our front yards, that we can, and parents, and I always say it doesn't always cost a lot. However, to take time out, and
Yeah.
if as a person, and you're neighborly with your neighbor's children, and you can help, then I would say help. And I just want to, before we close, and I'm going to give Sonia's number again before we close, but I just want to say, if you are, we have a psychologist who's a co-host of this program too, Mrs. Thais Love. She's not available today, but she sent in this to say that there are 5 things that you can do to help a friend or a family member who may be considering suicide, who may be going through issues, right? Ask them how they feel. And that's whether a person is suicidal or not. If you ask someone in your household or your how are you feeling, you notice when things change, don't you, Sony? You notice
Absolutely.
when the people that you're around just aren't themselves. Don't just leave it unsaid. Say something. Sometimes, can I tell you this? I one day was traveling on the train and I saw a young lady and I smiled at her. Just smiled. I looked at her and I smiled. And then I walked on and went towards the front of the train. Can I tell you what this young lady told me? She said, I was sitting down in the train by the time she came to me, and I heard someone saying, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. And I'm like, who's that going, excuse me? What? I'm not lying. I said this was what was in my head. I was like, if it's so difficult, because the train was crowded. So I'm saying, why can't they just stay where they are? Maybe because the train was crowded. But this person kept saying, excuse me, like poking their heads in and out. Then the person came and stopped in front of me. Now I was reading because I usually read a book. And I heard the voice say, excuse me. And I looked up and it was the young lady. She said, I need to speak to you, but I'm going to wait till I get a seat next to you. And the gentleman that was sitting next to me was gracious. And he said, sit. And she sat. She said she had decided to take her life. She was on that subway since the morning. And she said nobody said anything to her. Nobody greeted her. And she didn't have the courage. However, she said at that moment, she had made up her mind she was going to jump. Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, because this is after 5 p.m. And she said nobody had acknowledged her at all.
Wow.
And she said she asked God, if she shouldn't take her life, then let somebody say something. And she said, I'd never said anything, but she said the smile that I gave her
was the sign.
And I say that to say that we don't know what people are going through. All of us have gone through things. And I remembered, well, it wasn't bad. It's the first time one of my children was going away without me, because normally we go away on trips. But this one particular trip, because I had a baby, I couldn't go. And I'm walking back and tears are running down.
Wow.
And, I'll never forget a young Muslim lady. She came over to me and she said, my sister, are you okay? And she took out tissue and then she took out a bottle of water. And do you know, ever since that, I started to walk with an unopened bottle of water and tissue in my bag, just in case I see someone crying. And it may not be a serious thing, but the point is, here was someone willing to say, hey, are you okay?
Correct.
And that really resonated with me. So I say that a smile can make a difference. Asking someone how they're feeling makes a difference. And listening. Don't ask and then be on the phone and we're dialing or I don't know, whatever. Look at them and listen. It matters. And then and she said, ask them if you're feeling suicidal, but I'm saying also just ask a person, how are they? Once you notice something has changed, just ask. And she said, this will open up a conversation about what is bothering them, and this would help them to see that someone else cares and that their life matters. Be there for them. This may be physically going to their location and sitting with them. There is a thing called the ministry of presence. Sometimes someone just listen to them.
Yep.
Just let them cry. You don't have to have an answer. Supply the tissue, supply the shoulder, and that works. I know. I've been there, and I've been there for others. I'm telling you, when they're finished speaking and crying, they see things much more clearly. Because sometimes, do you know, right, as a psychologist or a counselor, and I used to counsel at one time, what do? You listen. What do you notice when you're counseling? Sometimes you don't have to tell them anything. After they're speaking, or sometimes in the middle of speaking, they'll go, oh, wait a minute. Have you ever seen people do that? I've had that moment. I've seen that. That has happened.
Yes.
Yeah, it works. It
Absolutely.
really works.
Yes.
Yes. So, and so be there for them. Be that presence. Also, she did state that it will be less likely for one to harm themselves in front of you. Keep them safe. Stay close to them. I can't tell you the amount of times my home has been a safe haven for folks. Literally.
Wow.
I'm telling you.
Wow.
Help them to connect to help themselves. So we're giving resources. You have the ARA group. I'm also going to give you NYC help, the number for that. Follow up. It is important that you follow up. Don't just come and say, oh, okay, they've cried. Okay, they're better. Because, things can happen if they're still in the same, situation. Yes, thank you for putting that up. Here's some resources. We have NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Health, Mental Illness, 800-950-6264. We have New York City Health Crisis Mental Health, Crisis Services and Mental Health. That is 888 NYC Health. And as I stated before, we do have ARA, Emotional Wellness and Mental Hygiene, 347-437-1059. And this person I do know, and and I've met some of his staff. So I highly recommend, that you reach out, and there is confidentiality. You don't have to worry. There is confidentiality.
Absolutely.
And so follow up, please. So these are some of the things that I would like for you to look, if you see it in your loved ones, or if you feel any of the symptoms that I mentioned before. We have just given you information on how to reach out. Do not stay in the same position. Listen, get up, be strong, and take action. I actually got that from Ezra 10:4. That came out of the Bible, but that is so appropriate. That is, it is just, we have to get up. Have you ever felt down? I don't know. I mean, as a parent, I've been there, right? As a wife, I've been there. As a mother, as a daughter, have been there. Listen, my mom was ill. My husband's mom was ill. Listen, we've gone through the gambit. There are just days we've lost our loved ones, and there are days when you kind of sort of don't feel like getting up, but listen, get up. If it's, I have found I would go to the park or go by. I love the water. So anywhere. So if it's the beach, I don't care if it's cold, I'll go and just stand and look. But I love when I can put my feet in the water. And by the way, when the water is cold, don't get in. Did you know that more people die from that first minute of the shock? So please don't jump in like that unless you're used to it, unless you've trained your body, right? So when you start taking cold baths at home, then you can do something like that. That's just a little tidbit on the side. But, but there are parks that you can go to, the botanic gardens, and Yeah, you pay to go to the Botanic Gardens, but you don't pay to go to the park. It's free. There is a
Mhm.
lake there that you can just watch the peace. And I find that once you're at peace, you process your thoughts differently. And by all means, there are many activities within, and the Brooklyn Museum. You have the Children's Museum, and you have the museum right there on Eastern Parkway. Right next to it is the library. They have movies. Well, things are coming back, but a lot of, listen, they have first Saturdays and lots of activities. The DA's office also have activities for young people at the Y, the Flatbush Y,
Right.
and I think it's PS 109 at other schools around Brooklyn. So uh, get in, listen, reach out to your elected officials office. They're also a great resource, but definitely. Let me tell you something. And this, Sonia, I found with our people is that because we're stigmatized, we don't want to get help. But let me tell you, there is no shame
Mhm.
in getting help because you want to be your
Right.
best self mentally and physically. And if you're not well mentally, you're not going to be well physically. But when you're mentally and physically
Physically. Right.
well, you can tackle and deal with anything and become. Your
With
environment
everything.
does
Yeah.
not have to dictate who you become. And it's never too late for you. You know, Al from Drum and or was it Brownsville? I can't remember the other name, but DRUM, they are on Flatbush. They've hired
Mhm.
people from the community, people who've done some time. And let me tell you, you want to see the change in these people? Do you want to see how productive and oh my goodness, let me tell you something.
Wow.
It doesn't matter what age you are, just show some love to someone. Okay, it doesn't matter what age they are, show love, show love. I also have another
Yes.
camp that you can check out. um, it's a campus day camp at Brooklyn College. It's 2901 Campus Road. Check it out. 718-421-7575. It's for ages 4 through 14. Okay, so please, please, please. And once again, if you do need help, I am telling you, reach out to 347-437-1059, Mr. Sony's organization, ARA, Emotional Wellness. I'm going to stop there. Listen, if you need marital counseling, if you need any kind of counseling, just reach out. And know that
Yes.
they do also have some Christian counselors. So if you're a Christian, you'll get the counseling that you need. Okay. So as I stated before, the Bible tells us, listen, we have to get up, what? Be strong. And when you can't be strong, lean on someone or be the shoulder for someone to lean on. So thank you, Sony, for joining in. Thank you, Crystal, for assisting. And we look forward to next month's Wake the Nation. We'll see what the topic is next month. And we'll be giving out food on Church Avenue and Ocean Avenue within another few weeks, but that will be announced as well. Fresh fruits and vegetables. We want our communities to be healthy, to be safe, and to be productive, no matter what anyone else says or thinks. We're doing it one person at a time, one day at a time. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Okay, have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.